the vast majority of people, but our average attendance is like 80 to 90%. So if there was a 10 to 20% reduction in our aid, because that's how we get our aid is on average daily membership. Even though we have people calling, people getting online, the challenge is making sure that we count everybody's participating, and we report in Mars our average daily membership. So if we average a 20% drop in attendance, that it wouldn't necessarily mean that we have 20% less kids. Just if the average kid's not logging on and we don't have attendance, we're not assured that how the funding stream is going to work. The second thing is the concern we have is the tax shift. There's already going to be a disruption in flows most likely as we approach next year. So this year might actually end up looking better than maybe the end of next year, as we've already seen a shortfall of $180 million in the collection of taxes. As people may be confused, maybe they think they don't have to pay their taxes till July 15th. And so the reason for meeting tonight is really to have a number of steps that the board in either next Monday or in a special work session can take action to reduce costs. Okay, so those options being as follows. Well, the very first one is any fee-based program, obviously Community Ed Fund 4. We're not getting any revenue right now, so we're looking at how could we maybe have reductions. Now, what I'm being told and what I understand is that, the careful thing is that we don't want to harm relationships. So let's just say we had a plan we bring forward that we would continue school readiness till April 30th, while on May 1st, we would lay off school readiness. Now, what I'm being told is that might actually be beneficial to the employee because we already had one that volunteered to resign and then went straight to getting laid off. Help me out. I'm using the right. Unemployment, yes. So the unemployment benefit you get with the COVID-19, you could actually find yourself making more money than and we also will only be paying them for the first 2 weeks of May. So they could actually probably receive more pay. And so that'd be something we could look at. We would also look at, this is all very provisional, but looking at a list of cuts. So the first thing we'd look at is anything in Fund 4 that we're not getting money in, we would make cuts in Fund 4. And the main reason we look at Fund 4 first is because it cannot be in deficit. So whatever we go upside down at the end of June, it has to come strictly out of the general fund. It cannot carry a deficit. The second thing would be is taking a look at what cost we have operational. So I already met. I met with the union, MTA last week, and explored a number of ideas. But the first one I was actually approached by. We hired an individual to sub in the high school. We're not having any subs the rest of the school year, so there was really no need to have this individual. So he would like for us to pay his insurance, and he would no longer receive a paycheck after April 15th. Seems a kind of a no-brainer. The second one would be taking a look at what other costs could we save. So one of the question marks would be is how many support staff do we need to carry? There's a lot of people that are actually working, they'll admit that they're working less than 4 hours a day, but receiving full pay. And I reached out to AFSCME to figure out, okay, what if we laid off a third of our paraprofessionals because we're not needed? Now, on a voluntary status, we might pay their health insurance, but they would go on unemployment, which might actually make more money for them. So there are some districts that ask individuals to volunteer to be laid off. So the next step would be looking at our spring coaches. In meeting with the union, they were cool with just our varsity, our high school coaches, because middle school practices had not even started. An example, if we gave them 25%, that's a $61,000. Not quite 61,000. Vicky hates it when I round up. If I round it down 60,000, it would actually be a $60,000 and some savings. So that might be an example where, honestly, if we're going to be looking at laying off people, it'd be hard to pay our coaches their full salary. It's not because I don't think they do a cool job or a great job. I just think those might be things we look at. I reached out to AFSCME to meet with me instead of laying off, and then started reducing paras hours. reducing just our staffing to allow them to take advantage of unemployment. And then, keeping in the back of our mind, I don't know if this will happen, but I think we have to prepare ourselves for it, that we may end up continuing to serve meals, provide school-age care through the rest of June off this fiscal year budget. I looked at custodians. We can take a look at that. But if you had a chance to go to the back shed, your jaw would drop, because that thing has been completely cleaned out. I mean, we're doing some of the things now. The question is, where can we look at reductions? So I started my own office. I would look at, between me and the activities office, laying off 2 people. I'd also take a look at every department we hit to a certain degree to make sure that we save some monies. And to keep in mind that obviously the $30,000 we probably would have had in activities, the $60,000 we probably save in revenue, and by not paying the coaches a full salary, some monies that we would get from reducing our school readiness staff. Every little bit helps for me for next year. So tonight it's all about what are your thoughts, what are your guidance. Angie did reach out to MSBA. This would go on the consent agenda, so it would not be individual by individual taking a vote. This would merely show up in the consent agenda. We could work on it this week, but I think timing would be the most critical thing. Obviously, right now the governor's plan is that we have distance learning through April 30th, bringing staff in on May 1st to plan, and May 4th, which is a Friday, and a Monday, and then having kids back in the district May 5th. Obviously, that plan seems, and even the governor's admitted that seems very, very unlikely. So I think the timing is when we get guidance, but if you would like, I'm assuming we want to have a discussion like now to have options available to the board, that if we had to go to a special board meeting, we could. So that's why I'll turn it over to the chair and listen for feedback.
All right, folks. So we're at a time right now where we're not quite sure what the budget's going to look like a year from now. There's some discussion about right-sizing temporarily. We'll open it up for comment.
Chad Barsness here. I agree with Chip. I mean, the state has ran through $2 billion surplus in a matter of about 2 to 3 weeks. I'm not confident that we're going to get the state funding that we are promised, for sure, on a timely basis, if anything else. And I think every dollar that we save is going to be precious moving into the end of this year and into next year. So as much as we can, as it hurts, it is what it is. So I agree with Chip on the 25% for the coaches. I don't think they should get 0, because I do, some of them have started and done some things already, and it keeps them in their slot, and we know they're valuable, for the following year. And then as far as Palmer, I think we get as little as possible. I think Chip was looking into the language on that, and there was some special language on a disaster type scenario that we're in that we can kind of maybe lean on a little bit with Palmer. And that would be the 2 biggest places I would start with, and don't leave any stone unturned.
Thank you, Mr. Barsness. Others?
I would like Vicki. We got a response back from Palmer, so the Palmer stone has been uncovered and did not come out the way we'd like. So Vicki, you want to kind of paraphrase what that is?
Well, Palmer is saying that we owe them their contract for their bus routes, which I suppose that can be said would go right along with the governor's guidance as of March 25th. But they're also saying that we owe them open enrollment mileage for every contract day. We did pay them for the 19 days in March, even though we only had 11. They bill that out separately. That's not a monthly payment. We did mail the April 15th just under $42,000 today. But they also believe that the special ed transportation of the vans, they're going to bill us as though it was a normal month. Now, I don't know how they know what is normal, because at any given time, kids could come or kids could leave, and we could have transition with a midday transport between buildings. So I don't know how they're gonna bill that out, if they're gonna average it out. We probably won't see that for the month of April till the middle of May. They say they're going to split the difference somehow on fuel surcharge. I have no idea how they're gonna come up with that. They said they've been running about 6 vans a day for us. Well, we have 3 vans in the back, so I guess I thought that's who was transporting food. I think all of the language is kind of iffy, but when we listened to a work session with business managers from Moorhead all the way through our region last week, all of them were paying their contractors. Now, I didn't ask them specifically for special routes, but they're paying for their bus routes, including Moorhead. They understand from the state that they have to continue paying. But another issue with the funding, back in 2012, we were getting a 60-40 split from the state. Plus, the counties are looking at possibly delaying our May settlements, which we normally get in May until July. And the state always reduces our June payments because of the fact that we have county settlements. So that'll cause a problem at the end of the school year if both happen and if there's a reduction in aid. Right now, they aren't telling us they're going to, but they aren't really telling us much from the state. That's about all I got. Oh, one other thing, there'll be refunds on participation fees if they're on sports to the tune of around $12,200. That's not including if we're gonna give refunds for jazz band or jazz choir because they didn't complete the year. There could be refunds on lots of things.
Chip, I got one question on that bus contract we were talking about, we chatted a little too, we kind of saw a little bit of that language. So that was just, you're getting the letter from Palmer that we had our council look over that contract in any way, shape, or form?
That I have not. So, today I sent an email basically outlining the concerns we had, and obviously came back and, I mean, the issue is that we've been directed to pay our contract, but the problem is there's a lot of gray. So, how many van routes would be running? I mean, the one thing we want to be careful of in some regard is that whatever we bill for sped this year is what we get paid next year. And so, you want to be smart about not paying, keeping it down, but I would just say that the Palmer busing, so like I'm thinking a loophole might be is maybe the board would take action to reduce our school calendar. So I know like every year it's hours, right? It's not days. It's an hour requirement. I'll look through, but elementary kids, and I want to say something about 750 hours for elementary kids. Well, we typically go with like 1,300 hours, and so you could, in theory, and I'm not trying to just save money on this. I have a first and a third grader, and I know some of you have elementary age kids too, and you start to wonder, like, it's not that those teachers aren't working their tail off, but your little Catholic Grace does about an hour and a half, 2 hours of schoolwork a day, picking up packets back and forth, and it's good, but at the same time, it's like, there might become a time where we end this responsibly, and we also just cut our costs. If we have a snow day, we reduce our billing by 169, because that's how we student conduct day. So if we drop 16 days, we could actually, that's very hypothetical, but we could adjust the school calendar. I talked to Sarah about it briefly, but this is very provisional, but I do have like Sandy Golke looking into Mars on how we calculate that. So that's an example. So the so what is on Palmer, Mr. Gugesberg, I would recommend, and if the board approves, I would have a look at our contract, forward the email I got from Chris today, from Palmer, and have them review it. And if it costs us $65 for an attorney to look for an hour, there might be some good in it, because there is a lot of gray in that, how many special ed vans would be running? Sometimes it's as high as 42, sometimes it's down to 37. So, that's 42,000, 37,000. So, it's a long answer, but yes, we could take a look at it.
Well, it seems to be a no-brainer to me that we look through that contract. Ultimately, Palmer is certainly not incurring the expenses that they had been before for fuel. Quite frankly, the contract is based upon $2.79 for a rate for gallon of fuel. Fuel right now is $1.70, whatever it is. It seems like there should be some kind of meet in the middle kind of compromise to this whole situation versus having to pay them for services that are no longer rendered.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree too. I don't see, speaking generally about a lot of businesses everywhere, everybody's getting reductions in their revenue, and why a bus company wouldn't also then have to absorb some of that as well, as long as all the other companies across our community have to as well. Seems to make sense to me, so I definitely in favor of spending a little bit of money to have council at least take a look at that contract from the short term.
All right, I'll reach out to Christy either this evening or early tomorrow morning and get it off to her. And it may be to the one here now, because they do more contracts, but we can have a review of that. Discussion about, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Chip. The other question I had, you were just was trying to get it all together there when you were talking about the reductions and then some staff reductions. And did you say in your office and then the high school office as well, like office staff? Is that what you were talking about too, along with paras and then the other hourly employees?
Yeah, so what I envision is this is tonight, as long as the board is kind of get some general guidance. Obviously, we're not taking any action, but we'll take a look at our Palmer contract. We'll take a look at our Fund 4 options, and obviously Sarah and Esther, I know it's awkward for you to be on here because it'd be your staff, but we discussed it, and it might actually work out better for some to take unemployment. And then we would take a look at just our staffing. Right now, in the letter I got from ASME that some board members read that were on the interview committee, basically they acknowledge that they're not all working full-time but getting full-time benefits, so we would take a look at that. But here in the office alone, so our food service, instead of serving 1,200 kids meals a day, we're down to 200. The workload is way less, and we have one person in our office that who does food service. We could easily just lay her off and bring her back next fall, and she might actually benefit better that way. Across the hall, and it's not trying to get personal, and we're not picking on people, but the activity secretary, there's no activities, there's no community ed events, so there's no registration, and she was going to take a leave anyway, so she would still get revenue. We obviously would explain to people that it's not personal, it's just right now we want to protect Fund 4, so we can lay her off. I don't know if we need 2 people in the high school office, and it's not because we don't think they're great. Then again, we have attendance is being submitted digitally, and then I have a dean of students, I have a principal, I have a secretary. I have paras making phone calls to verify attendance. We can even take a look at our custodians. I guess I would say is I would ask just the overall feel of the board just to generate some options. If we get further guidance, and here's the deal, if they can tell me that we were supposed to get $100, I'm still going to get $100, and it's going to flow through me so people get paid, I don't have a problem with that as long as we're guaranteed to get that revenue. The problem is, I don't know if we're going to, the $102 we get next year because we're supposed to have a 2% increase. I don't know if that 102 is coming in a steady stream, just because you're already seeing indications now. Even the state government today issued a freeze for all new hires in the state of Minnesota. So that is why I want to get people together. And obviously the whole coaching thing, so that hits the streets, you're going to get phone calls. People aren't going to be happy. I assume. Bill, any thoughts on that?
Right here? Okay. No, that's a tough one. There's no question about it. So we've seen what schools are doing. The vast majority, I don't think, has made a decision on where that's going to be at this point. I think that the majority of schools are waiting until we hear officially from the governor whether the school year is going to be canceled for the rest of the year, and the MSHSL is awaiting as well. I know we've seen what Region 6A is doing. I have a pretty good idea what the conference schools are currently planning on doing, but I think the vast majority of schools at this point haven't yet made a final decision on what they're going to do in regards to paying spring coaches.
So, I guess I'd just like to hear from other board members, your thoughts, kind of how you feel about it at this point.
Yeah, as tough as it is, I mean, like several other board members alluded to, I mean, there's not one person that's not being affected by this, so, agreement with, Chip and the other board members that spoke earlier about, not leaving anything unturned and being as efficient and frugal and, to get through this, and we will, so that's my quick, brief summary of what needs to be done.
Ms. Meyer?
I concur.
Mr. Zavagil?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, some stuff is kind of unavoidable. Thing that there's a lot of this going on. Obviously, you've seen what basically effort. So there's a lot of programs out there. There's additional unemployment money. I mean, I feel like if it's somebody that we can, that this will necessarily meet at the time, we have to kind of tighten our belts a little bit. We should.
Thank you, Chip. I think you have direction.
Okay. Again, I think the most critical thing is this. Usually when you come to the board meeting, it's an action meeting. So what I'm going to ask is potentially maybe this Friday, we would have the personnel committee get together remotely for maybe a half an hour just to give an update on kind of different things we could do. Again, the timing is like right now, the only cuts I do know that we have made is our substitute in the high school has already asked me, and I agreed. I took discretion. I said we would pay his insurance because we'll end up paying some of it anyway. He would get his insurance through, we pay through August. We would do that, but he would no longer get his salary after the 15th. So he's taking a leave of absence. Other than that, we've had some people that are already asked to take leave, so we've allowed that to happen. But just so everybody knows, at this point, nobody's really been caught because of coronavirus. But what all this is to get people together to have a discussion. I anticipate there'll be some guidance coming out in the very near future from the governor. Obviously, if plans change, if we open up on May 5th, the whole predication on what we were doing was to buy time. Remember, we were only going to do distance learning for the month of April, with the anticipation of opening again on May 5th. Thus, that's why we continue to pay for all the contracts. I want to anticipate that, obviously, nothing we will do will have to comes out that we're spending money as money we won't get back. So that was the purpose of the night, is we are well aware. We're working on how we could look at the budget. I would even tell you, as we are developing the budget for next year, there'll be almost no support staff. I mean, there will obviously be paras, but we're looking at what we would do for, potentially our deans. Basically everyone's either in a classroom or has a direct role. Just because I think we're going to have to be as lean as possible. Obviously, we always try to be, but so that being said, I just think it's also important that when you're going to see some things like we Mark had a deal already to get Chromebooks. Well, that's a whole different fund, right? That's the tech levy. So it's just important when you see certain things like, well, there they go buying Chromebooks. Well, that's something we have to do in a different color of money. I think I got everybody's guidance. For that, Mr. Chair, I would say that, again, we're preparing some options for the board until we get more guidance from the governor. The only ones we've taken at this point is the reduction in high school. But if we get more information, it could potentially be on next Monday's board meeting if we get more guidance this week from the governor. So tonight, I just want to give everybody a heads up. We're working on it all week. If there is information that comes out, I will send it out to you. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Chair, for closing comments.
All right, personnel, are we gonna go for, Friday at like noon?
Friday at noon, if it's possible.
Works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so, hold on.
Or you need to do it at midnight, so you're gonna Chinatown.
And, noon will work.
Okay, we'll have that personnel meeting remotely noon on Friday.
I mean, I can send an invite out after this meeting.
All right, I appreciate everybody's time, and, let's all take care of each other and ourselves, and we'll move forward. That, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting at, 6:52.
Barsness, so moved.
Is there a second?
Dugasberg, second.
Roll call. Parsons.
Yes.
Christensen's a yes. Oop, I lost my. Dugasberg.
Yes.